Peter Britton Tobin, born the 27th of August 1946, is a convicted Scottish serial killer and sex offender who is currently serving a whole life order at HMP Edinburgh for 3 murders committed between 1991 and 2006. Prior to his first murder conviction, Tobin served 10 years in prison for a double rape committed in 1993, following which he was released in 2004. 3 years after his release, he was sentenced to life with a minimum of 21 years for the rape and murder of Angelica Cluck in Glasgow in 2006. Skeletal remains of 2 teenagers who went missing in 1991 were subsequently found at his former home in Margate, Kent. Tobin was convicted of the murder of Vicky Hamilton in December 2008, resulting in his minimum sentence being increased to 30 years, and of the murder of Donna McNichol in December 2009, resulting in a whole life order. Tobin has been labeled a psychopath by a senior psychologist and by criminology professor David Wilson, who also wrote a book on Tobin, connecting him with the Bible John murders in the late 1960s. Early in personal life, Peter Tobin was born in Johnstone, Renfrewshire, one of 8 siblings. He had 4 older sisters and 3 older brothers. Tobin was a difficult child, and in 1953, aged 7, he was sent to an approved school. He reportedly joined the French Foreign Legion, but later deserted. He later served time in a borstal, and in 1970 was convicted and imprisoned in England for burglary and forgery. Tobin moved to Brighton, Sussex, where he married his 17-year-old girlfriend, Margaret Louise Robertson Mountney, a clerk and typist, in August 1969. They separated after a year and she divorced him in 1971. In 1973, he married a local nurse, 30-year-old Sylvia Jeffries. The couple had 2 sons and a daughter, the latter of whom died soon after birth. This second violent marriage lasted until 1976, when Sylvia left with their son. Tobin then had a relationship with Kathy Wilson. The couple married in 1987, with a son arriving later that year. In 1990, they moved to Bathgate, West Lothian. Wilson left Tobin in 1990 and moved back to Portsmouth, Hampshire, where she grew up. All 3 wives later gave similar accounts of falling for a charming, well-dressed psychopath who turned violent and displayed a sadistic streak during their marriages. In May 1991, Tobin moved to Margate, Kent, and, in 1993, to Hovent, Hampshire to be near his younger son. Convictions: rape of juveniles. On the 4th of August 1993, Tobin attacked 2 14-year-old girls at his flat in Lee Park, Hovent, after they called to visit a neighbor, who was not at home. They called at Tobin's flat and asked if they could wait there. After holding them at knife point and forcing them to drink strong cider and vodka, Tobin sexually assaulted and raped the girls, stabbing one of them whilst his younger son was present. He then turned on the gas taps and left them for dead, but they both survived the attack. To avoid arrest, Tobin went into hiding and joined the Jesus Fellowship, a religious sect, in Coventry, under a false name. He was later captured in Brighton, after his blue Austin Metro car was found there. On the 18th of May 1994, at Winchester Crown Court, Tobin entered a plea of guilty and received a 14-year prison sentence. In 2004, Tobin, then 58 years old, was released from prison and returned to Paisley. Angelica Cluck murder. In September 2006, Tobin was working as a church handyman at St. Patrick's Roman Catholic Church in Anderston, Glasgow. He had assumed the name of Pat McLaughlin to avoid detection, as he was still on the violent and sex offender register following his 1994 convictions for rape and assault. An arrest warrant had been issued for him in November 2005 after he moved from Paisley without notifying the police, but he was not discovered until he became a suspect in Cluck's murder at the church. In May 2007, he received a further 30-month sentence for breaching the terms of the register. Angelica Cluck, a 23-year-old student from Poland, was staying at the presbytery of St. Patrick's Church, where she worked as a cleaner to help finance her Scandinavian Studies course at the University of Gdansk. She was last seen alive in the company of Tobin on the 24th of September 2006, and is thought to have been attacked by him in the garage attached to the presbytery. She was beaten, raped and stabbed, and her body was concealed in an underground chamber beneath the floor near the confessional in the church. Forensic evidence suggested that she was still alive when she was placed under the floorboards. Police found her body on the 29th of September, and Tobin was arrested in London shortly afterwards. He had been admitted to hospital under a false name, and with a fictitious complaint. A 6-week trial resulted from the evidence gathered under the supervision of Detective Superintendent David Swindle of Strathclyde Police and took place at the High Court of Justiciary, Edinburgh, between the 23rd of March and the 4th of May 2007. The trial judge was Lord Menzies, the prosecution was led by Advocate Dorothy Bain, and the defense by Donald Findlay QC. Despite his insistence that his sexual activity with Gluck was consensual and that he did not kill her, Tobin was found guilty of raping and murdering Gluck and was sentenced to life imprisonment, to serve a minimum of 21 years. In sentencing Tobin, Judge Lord Menzies described him as an evil man. Vicky Hamilton murder. In June 2007, Tobin's old house in Bathgate was searched in connection with the disappearance of 15-year-old Vicky Hamilton, who was last seen on the 10th of February 1991 as she waited for a bus home to Reading, near Falkirk. Tobin is believed to have left Bathgate for Margate a few weeks after her disappearance. On the 21st of July 2007, Lothian and Borders Police released a statement that they had arrested, cautioned and charged a male in connection with the matter, and a report has been submitted to the Procurator Fiscal, but did not immediately confirm the identity of the man arrested. The investigation later led to a forensic search of a house in Southsea, Hampshire in early October 2007, where Tobin is believed to have lived shortly after leaving Bathgate. On the 14th of November 2007, Lothian and Borders Police confirmed that human remains found in the back garden of 50 Irvine Drive, a house in Margate occupied by Tobin in 1991, were those of Hamilton. In November 2008, Tobin was tried at the High Court in Dundee for Hamilton's murder. He was again defended by Donald Findlay, while the prosecution was led by the Solicitor General for Scotland, Frank Mulholland QC. The prosecution case went beyond the circumstantial evidence of Tobin having lived at the two houses in Bathgate and Margate in 1991, and consisted of eyewitness testimony of suspicious behavior by Tobin at the Bathgate house, evidence to destroy his alibi, and forensic evidence of DNA and fingerprints left on a dagger found in the Bathgate house, on Hamilton's purse and on the sheeting in which her body was wrapped. After a month-long trial, Tobin was convicted of Hamilton's murder on the 2nd of December 2008. When sentencing Tobin to life imprisonment, the judge said, "You stand convicted of the truly evil abduction and murder of a vulnerable young girl in 1991 and thereafter of attempting to defeat the ends of justice in various ways over an extended period. Yet again you have shown yourself to be unfit to live in a decent society. It is hard for me to convey the loathing and revulsion that ordinary people will feel for what you have done. I fixed the minimum period which you must spend in custody at 30 years. Had it been open to me, I would have made that period run consecutive to the 21-year custodial period that you are already serving." On the 11th of December 2008, Tobin gave formal notice to court officials that he intended to challenge the verdict and overturn the sentence imposed on him. Tobin's defense team was not required to describe the grounds for this appeal until a later date in the appeals process. Tobin did not proceed with his appeal, and it was dropped in March 2009. Dinah McNichol murder. Dinah McNichol, an 18-year-old sixth former from Tillingham, Essex, was last seen alive on the 5th of August 1991, hitchhiking home with a male companion from a music festival in Liphook, Hampshire. He was dropped off at Junction 8 of the M25, near Reigate, while McNichol stayed in the car with the driver. She was never seen again. After her disappearance, regular withdrawals of £250 were made from her building society account at cash machines in Hampshire and Sussex, out of character for McNichol, who had told friends and family that she intended to use the money in her building society account to travel or further her education. In late 2007, Essex police reopened the investigation into McNichol's disappearance, following new leads. On the 16th of November 2007, a second body was found at 50 Irvine Drive in Margate, later confirmed by police to be that of McNichol. On the 1st of September 2008, the Crown Prosecution Service served a summons on Tobin's solicitors, formally accusing him of her murder, and this trial began in June 2009. The trial was postponed and the jury discharged in July 2009, the judge ruling that Tobin was not fit to stand trial pending surgery. The case resumed on the 14th of December 2009 at Chelmsford Crown Court. On the 16th of December, after the defense had offered no evidence, a jury found Tobin guilty of McNichol's murder after deliberating for less than 15 minutes, and Tobin subsequently received his third life sentence. That same day, police reopened Operation Anagram to trace Tobin's past movements and his possible involvement in a further 13 unsolved murders, including the 3 victims of the unidentified killer Bible John. Tobin is reported to have claimed 48 victims in boasts made in prison. Bible John connection. Tobin's convictions have led to speculation that he is Bible John, who operated in Glasgow in the 1960s. There are similarities between photographs of Tobin from that era and the photo fit artist's impression of Bible John, and Tobin had moved from Glasgow in 1969, the same year as the killings officially ended. Another similarity is that eyewitnesses told police that the suspect had one tooth missing in his upper right area of the mouth. Dental records proved that Peter Tobin had a tooth removed around the late 1960s. Furthermore, it had been alleged that Tobin reacted violently to his victim's menstrual cycle, something which has long been suspected as the motive behind the Bible John murders. Police have not commented upon any similarities, but said that any surviving forensic evidence will be rechecked. Although DNA had been used to rule out a previous suspect, detectives believe a DNA link to Tobin is unlikely due to a deterioration of the samples through poor storage. Operation Anagram. Operation Anagram is a British police investigation into Tobin's life and movements. The investigation was started in 2006, after his first murder conviction, by DSI Swindle of Strathclyde Police, and increased in intensity in December 2009 after Tobin's third conviction. Through the Homes 2 database, police forces across the UK are involved in the operation, investigating the possibility of Tobin's connection to dozens of murders and disappearances of teenage girls and young women. DSI Swindle, speaking after Tobin's 2006 conviction for the murder of Gluck, said that Tobin's age and the method of the murder sparked speculation that he may be a serial killer, as did interviews with Tobin. Anagram led to the discovery of the bodies of Hamilton and McNichol. It is believed that as of December 2009, detectives across the UK were following up on up to 1,400 lines of inquiry. As part of their renewed enquiries, police are especially interested in tracing the owners of jewelry items found at his residences. In July 2010, it was reported that officers working on Operation Anagram had narrowed their review down to 9 unsolved murders and disappearances. The operation was wound down in June 2011, having failed to identify any more victims, but its email address remains active. Health. On the 9th of August 2012, Tobin was taken to Edinburgh Royal Infirmary after suffering chest pains and a suspected heart attack at the city's Sawton prison. In February 2016, Tobin was hospitalized again following a suspected stroke. References. External links: Too Young to Die, Murder of Angelica Cluck, Crime Scenes Scotland, Forensic Squad documentary, BBC, 2013.